Hey guys, I want you to learn a tool that I call the clock. And you think, the clock, what is that? This is a tool that I've used for a number of years to help use the space around I say the table. A lot of times groups don't mean the tables, right? But to use the interpersonal space in the group to make the group do what I want it to do. And the actual word for this is called proxemics. Proxemics, that will not be on the exam. Proxemics, but if you're really interested in this, you can look up, Google proxemics and you'll find all kinds of stuff. It's a very interesting field of study, and the idea is that the way that people relate and communicate actually is influenced heavily by the space between people, like the way, how close we are to each other, the way that we're situated actually impacts the way that we communicate, and that's called proxemics. And so what I have found, what you will find, is that where people sit in the group actually will define a lot the way that they interact with the group. And you think, well, surely that's not the case. I know this, and I can see it in myself. I bet you if I teach you, you can see it. You will be able to see it in your own interactions as well. This is like Jedi mind control stuff. Like, this is one of the things that when I teach it, people are like, no way, and then they go watch it. They're like, it really does work that way. So we're going to use a circle just as an easy example, right? Now, I know that your group isn't always in a circle, but roughly circular groups are going to be good, because let's say your group meets and this is where people are sitting, okay? Then the people that are here on the corners, they really feel excluded from the group, right? And so if you have people that are sitting like this, maybe this is how your living room's set up, right? You've got people that are sitting kind of around your living room here, and then you've got one person over here. Guess what? They will feel left out of the group. The group will feel like, man, they're kind of not with us, right? There's all kinds of stuff that goes on in our brain where if we act out in certain ways, people perceive it in certain ways, right? So if I walk up to you and my hands are crossed like this, you think like, he's kind of close to what I'm doing. Even if you might think internally, no, that's not true. But that's how it's perceived, all right? So for ease of conversation, we're just going to assume that we're all sitting around a big circular table, right? And let's say that you, as the leader, are sitting right here. I'm going to call this 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. Put that upon. I'm just going to put 6. Let's say you, as the leader, are sitting at 6 o'clock. All right. Now, I want you to think: what is the most powerful seat at the table besides yours? Now, you're like, Micah, I didn't get in this thing for it to be about power, right? I'm not about power. I'm about laying down power. Jesus gives up his power. I get all that. But what is the strongest seat at the table besides yours? By strong, I mean, if someone sits there, the group will defer to them more. They will be more likely to talk. They will be more likely to share their opinion. They will be more likely to do all kinds of things. What spot is that? You may have already decided. If you're an experienced small group leader, you already know. It's this spot right here. It's the 12 o'clock spot, right? Now, why is that? Well, part of it's because Jesus says the eyes are the window to the soul, and he means kind of a broad spectrum of things there, but part of what it means when I'm looking at groups is that every time, this isn't probably what Jesus meant by that, but every time I look at you, I give you license to speak. That's just how it works. If I ask a question and I look at you, my eye connection with you makes you feel like I could speak because he's looking at me. But what happens is, when we sweep our eyes across the group, we're most likely to spend more of our time looking at this person than any other person in the group. Or maybe, the 11 o'clock or the 1 o'clock. Like, these people, let's not even say people, these seats in the group will get more, they will get more eye contact than anyone else, right? Because if I start over here and I look, I'm only going to see, I might see this person twice that's over here. I'm only seeing this person once, right? The people that are at your corners, you're not going to see as much. You're mostly going to see the people across from you. And what that feels like, if you're sitting there, is constant license to speak. What you may find, try it and see if I'm wrong. What you may find is that sometimes your biggest talkers will naturally and subconsciously sit across from you. Well, if you have a heavy talker who's sitting across from you, what happens? Then they just want to have a dialogue with you, because I'm just looking at you, you're looking at me, there's these people on the sides, right? And we just talk back and forth. We have a great conversation. It's awesome, right? I'm a heavy talker. I never let myself sit across from the main person in the group, from the group leader, because I'll talk too much, all right? And so what we want to do is we want to make sure, well, so let me say for now, that these seats are the strong seats. So if that's the strong seat, where's the weak seat? Where's the weakest seats at the table? Now you might be thinking, it's right here and right here. You would be incorrect. It's actually what I call the elbows, right? So like your 9 o'clock, your 3 o'clock, these are the spots that are actually the weakest. We'll talk about these in a minute, right? So these spots are actually the weakest spots at the table. You will find, if you lead groups for very long, that your introverts will naturally try to orient themselves into these spots. That's just where they'll go subconsciously. They don't know about the clock, they don't know what's up, but they will naturally lend themselves into that kind of spot because it's easy to be overlooked, right? I don't have to talk a lot. There's the conversation going over there. I'm kind of outside and I can just watch. Okay? Now these spots here, let's call it 5 and 7, right? These spots are wild cards. So strong, weak. These spots down here are your wild cards. What happens if I'm a small group leader and right next to me is a heavy talker, right? Well, he feels like, because everyone in the group, I'm not looking at him necessarily, or her, but everyone in the group is looking at me, and they kind of feel like I'm looking at, that everyone in the group is looking at them too, right? And so they kind of do this thing where they're like, yeah, well, what Micah and I, put their arm around me. Hey, what Micah and I think is, and it becomes, they kind of share, if they're a heavy talker, they're going to try and share in your authority. Again, this is all subconscious. They'll try and like throw in on that kind of thing. On the other hand, someone who is shy or an introvert, what they'll do when they sit next to you, they'll just move their chair back a little bit. Like if you're all sitting at one of those round white tables, right? They'll just pull the chair back just a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're out of your line of sight, and you never see them, you never call on them, nothing ever happens, right? And so these wild cards are actually relatively easy to control, because the heavy talker, a slight tap on the hand or on the knee, depending on how you're sitting. Don't tap someone on the knee if there's a table. It'd be creepy. But any kind of slight touch a lot of times will break the chain of words coming out of their mouth. So you wait for them to take a breath, slight touch, they pause, so there's a pause for them to take a breath, another pause where they look over to you to see what was up, and you say, hey, and then you can redirect, right? But or if somebody is kind of hiding from the conversation, it's real easy to lean back and say, hey, what do you think about this? And they don't have to talk to the group, they can just talk to you. So this is where I like putting my hardest people, honestly, sometimes is in these wild card spots, if I feel like I can control those wild cards pretty well. But, so what do we have? We have the strong spots up top, the weak spots are at the sides, and the wild card is right near you. So, what does that mean? Well, one thing it means is, as much as you can, it helps if you can control where, kind of where this shakes out. Now, you probably can't make people sit where you want them to sit. Like, it doesn't necessarily work that way. But what you can do is you can watch and see, like, man, I've got this really heavy talker. His name's David Vaughn, and he's in my group, and he just talks all the time. And he always sits right across from me. I know he's going to sit in this comfortable chair, right? So what I might do as a leader is I might say, you know what, I usually sit over here, but I'm going to sit, let's rotate the thing, right? I'm going to sit right here in the room. Then instead of David being at my 12, he's at my 9, right? Then instead of David being at my 12, maybe he's at my 3. I can choose to put my heaviest talkers in weaker areas. Now that's not going to make them not a talker, okay? But it kind of damps it down a little bit. If I put my non-talkers into a stronger area, it doesn't suddenly make them into, the world's most eager conversationalist, but what it does do is it just amps them up a little bit. We're not talking total personality transplant, okay? We're just talking like it just accentuates it a little bit. So it's not perfect, it's not going to get you everything you want, But I bet if you start paying attention to this, you'll find that it actually does make a difference in your group, and it lets the people who don't talk much, it lets them talk a little more. The people who talk a lot makes them talk a little bit less, and it can get you going towards where you want to be, which is that everybody is contributing to the group together. All right, so that's the clock. Let's put a little one of these here. That's the clock, and I hope that it's useful to you as you're trying to help your small group have great conversations. Thanks, guys.